Here's an interesting saying. It's easier to fix your roof when it's not raining. That's all I got today. Just kidding. Easier to fix your roof when it's not raining. In other words, the repairs, the remodeling, the upgrades, the improvements that we do to ourselves, for ourselves, with ourselves, through ourselves is easier when the storm is not upon us. Of course, that improvement, that upgrade can always be done at any time in the midst of any storm, even if we've never done it before. In other words, if we're hitting a bottom in life or going through an enormously difficult time and we really haven't been connected or spiritual or practicing spiritual fitness, any prayer that we ever issue is, of course, answered, but it may be the case that it doesn't seem to be answered with the immediacy that we might want. In other words, God, please help, so to speak, always works, but depending on our proximity to God, our moment-to-moment connection that we cultivate, if we work on our roof when it's not raining, if we establish conscious contact when times are good, then if the S hits the fan, so to speak, the result, the blessing, the benefit is much more immediate. I think a beautiful story, spiritual story around this, and I may have mentioned this before, I can't remember, is the story of Daniel in the lion's den. Good old-fashioned Old Testament biblical story. But anyway, long story short, Daniel, who's very spiritual, very religious, very ethical, very good prophet of the Bible, is suddenly cast into very large trouble through no fault of his own, through inimical people around him, and who have him thrown into the lion's den, and not a good place to be thrown. In most cases, those thrown into the lion's den were consumed instantaneously. But because Daniel prayed, he worked on his roof, he worked on his conscious contact continuously, moment by moment, for many weeks, months, likely years prior to this dilemma coming upon him. And so when he was thrown into the lion's den, oddly, the lions found him unappetizing. They did not eat him. The next morning, when the king ran down to see if Daniel was okay and he cruised out, the king was somewhat surprised. Now, the king was not altogether happy with his buddy Daniel being thrown into the lion's den, so he threw those inimical, that's not exactly how you say it, into the lion's den, and they were eaten quite quickly. So what's the lesson? Be unappetizing to lions. I think the lesson is the work that we do in prayer and meditation prior to dilemma or the S hitting the fan, so to speak, serves us spectacularly well when it does happen, as we all know that it will at some point. So our prayer and meditation through the good times every day consistently makes it so that when we say, God, please help us, God always will, but the result, the benefit, the improvement, the solution will seem to come to us with much greater temporal immediacy. I'm sure you get that. Anyway, I'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks.